Where are you seeing things go? I mean, none of us can predict the future, but in terms of on-chain analytics, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, like with on-chain, I can probably only give you a good guess for the next like month or so. I think like when you get out into the next couple months, it's kind of like weather forecasting, I guess.
Yeah.
Like in the very short term, you can give a pretty accurate description of what you think is going to happen, but then once you get out further, it gets hazier. So I would say with the most confident kind of time frame that I look at to be able to predict things is like several weeks to the next month or two. And so when I look at that time frame, I see price going up much higher than it is now, just based off of several of things we talked about. Really strong accumulation. It's the first time in Bitcoin's history where every single cohort by their size is buying at the same time. We said all-time highs in net user growth, a lot of supply becoming a liquid. So you're seeing almost this underlying supply shock in the market. And just the fact that Bitcoin is very oversold on a lot of different traditional technical indicators also. But on-chain terms, I think over the next couple of weeks to month or two, you're going to see a further price rise. In the short term, we could just kind of go sideways a little bit. It's kind of hard to say. We just had like 10 straight up days. So just having like some kind of short-term mean reversion after going up so aggressively, I don't think it's crazy to say that maybe we'll consolidate between like 35 and 40 for a week or two. But when I get out into like the next couple of weeks to month or two, I stand kind of strongly bullish. But to the end of the year, I think it kind of depends on the institutions, right? Like if we start to see a lot of people, stick their neck out and say, oh yeah, we bought Bitcoin at, what, because the thing is, a lot of these institutions, in my opinion, aren't going to come out until we get towards all-time highs because they want to look smart, right? They don't want to come out and say we bought this thing and then while it's going sideways for 3 months. So, they'll come out maybe when we get up into like the 50, 60 range and they'll say, oh yeah, we bought that thing in the low 30s. Of course we did. Cause they want to seem like they're geniuses. So I think like as price goes higher, you'll see more announcements just because like accumulation, like I said, is very strong on chain. Exchanges are getting depleted and coins are moving to every single cohort. Like every single cohort is accumulating. So especially like you've seen this big uptick in whales over the last couple weeks. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of like institutional announcement over the next couple months or something like that.
Oh, that would be so exciting. So do you dollar cost, I mean, do you dollar cost average or and back in August when you first were really digging into this, it was expensive, right? I mean, it's not easy for a college student to afford a Bitcoin. Like, did you start to put a lot of your money in there? Did your parents think like, "Whoa, you're crazy?"
Yeah, parents weren't too happy. Parents still weren't too happy until like the last couple months, and then they still don't know what I do, but they just know it's like somewhat like people think it's cool now because of the following and stuff, but they still have no idea really what I even do. But anyway, like yeah, I just started kind of DCAing in at the beginning, and I would just put most of my paycheck in. I was working at Target at the time. So yeah, I was just like taking like 80, 90% of my paycheck and I was looking at, like stock to flow and saying this thing is going to go to like 250,000 in the next couple months. And I was like, oh, the red dot's starting to go up. Like I got to get as much money into this thing as I can because the next couple dots are going to be way higher than they were now. Like that was literally my thought process looking back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just DCAing really heavily. But then over the last couple months, I've started trading like a small portion of my stack, which I know like a lot of the hardcore Bitcoin people are gonna be upset about. And like I don't tell other people to do that, but I think like the best way to learn the game is through experience. And so, I don't mind trading like a small portion of my holdings.
What's the reaction been at your university? Like, are other students really interested in what you're doing and want to learn about Bitcoin from you? Are there opportunities to even talk about Bitcoin in any of your finance classes?
Yeah, so I've only had one finance class, and that was personal finance. And so like it wasn't it was online, so like I didn't even get to talk to the teacher or anything, but I sure will give them a hard time this year when I go back in person. um but yeah, I haven't really had much of a reaction just because of that, because I haven't really been around my teachers or students. But I have gotten reached out by my school, so they're doing like some kind of article or something on like the the school webpage or something like that. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I haven't really gotten any reaction from them just because like I haven't interacted with any of them. But I absolutely will give all my econ and finance teachers a hard time next year.
Got it. So like you weren't even on Zoom classes. This was like all
No.
online courses where you're not interacting with anyone.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even have any of the like. I've seen people who have to like actually sit
Oh.
in for like hour-long Zoom calls. I didn't have to do any of that.
What's your goal? Like what's your career goal and what do you want to do with this?
Yeah, part of me just really loves like tinkering with the data and just like trying to find new stuff. So I would like to do some kind of like data research, um, some kind of job in that. Like I would really like to have some kind of firm, theoretically, like, analyzing full time and having like some kind of like team of on-chain analysts, just because I think a lot of us work on our own. And, it's almost like I always mess this quote up. It's like the total is the better than the sum of the parts. Basically saying like when everybody works together, it's better than the total
Yeah.
of each person working for themselves. But yeah, I think that would really apply to on-chain, just because like there's never really been a team of on-chain analysts, from my understanding, that have like come together and have actively, just like work day in and day out to research this thing. Other than, I know like Willy Woo and that guy David Poile I mentioned earlier, they worked briefly at a fund, but other than that, like just I don't think there's any pure like research firms in that sense. And so it would be sick to have like 5 or 10 of these guys together and just like
Yeah.
bouncing ideas off each other.
Yeah. No, well, in terms of the false narratives that are out there saying that like Bitcoin could easily be hacked or it's just for nefarious activities, when you actually look at the ledger and all of it is just right there for someone to forensically analyze, what do you like, can you kind of share for people that don't understand how much information is actually in there? Like, can you potentially even figure out whose wallet a transaction is coming from based on maybe its history, or is that still a little bit too difficult?
Yeah, there are some companies that do that, like Chainalysis, I think is the most popular one, and they know like 90% of transactions who's on one side of them, some crazy statistic like that. And if you're like buying Bitcoins on some kind of KYC exchange, they're able to attach those UTXOs to your KYC account, and then wherever those UTXOs move, they can track that, and they know that they're your coins. So you can do that, but the stuff I look at is just for like market intelligence purposes. So like Glassnode, and there's also other data providers like Nick Carter's Coin Metrics, and CryptoQuant is one of the big ones based out of South Korea. So they're all just looking at kind of like market analysis and like what's going on in the broader sense, rather than like individual wallet movements. Like I know some people do like to say, oh, this old whale sold or whatever, and like looking at individual wallets and stuff. But I find that like very noisy. So I just like to look at what's going on in aggregate, right? So like instead of looking at like the behavior of one specific whale, like what's the point of that when the whole behavior in the broader sense of all the whales is completely different? So I think you can like kind of drive yourself crazy looking at that. So I I, I think the only place where I would find that really interesting to have this like next level of intelligence that I think kind of crosses into the privacy aspect of it, which like these data providers are careful not to cross, but would be to know the location of some of these new users that are coming on the network.
Yeah.
Because like I mentioned, there's new all-time highs in net user growth, and I suspect a lot of that is probably from Latin
Latin
America.
America. Yeah.
Yeah.